All right, who's to blame for this organizational failure that we've seen recently? Is it the players? Is it the coaches? Is it the front office? Is it Jose Rojas? Who's to blame, right? Hey, let's chat about that on Fanmail Friday. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, we're glad you're here. Make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's show is brought to you by Sleeper. You can swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks. You just need to pick up to a person that can actually overperform or underperform. You can download the Sleeper app right now and use our promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Sleeper's terms of use details, you can check those out for all of the specifics. Currently operational in 30 states. Check out Sleeper today.
Is it Jose Rojas? No one got me. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, Locked On Everydayers, don't forget to join us Monday as we recap this weekend series against the Rays that starts tonight at the Big A. The boys are back in town, Michael, and they're taking on the Tampa Bay Rays, who are playing about 500 baseball right now. Definitely have a better record than us. Definitely are probably a better team than us. But hey, can we take 2 out of 3? Please? Come on. Let's do something here. Goodness gracious. We need some support here. Hey, we've got a ton of voicemails today for Fanmail Friday. So we jumped into the voicemail line, got your messages from you, and we're very happy that you did that. Let's go to our first voicemail. Jeff from Houston. Here we go.
Hey, John and Mike. This is Jeff from Houston, Texas. Lifelong Angel fan. Grew up by Anaheim Stadium. Rode my bike by there on the River Trail when I was a kid. Lots of ups and downs throughout the years you guys mentioned. This is one of those soul-crushing years. Too many ups and downs. My problem is I don't see that players are the solution. We bring players in, the wheels fall off when they come here, and perfectly good players. I think it's a culture thing, and I think there's stuff in the front office, coaching all the way down, and I'm just wondering what your take is on the turnaround this offseason, players versus a culture. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your honesty and your positivity. That's what keeps me coming back. Take care, guys. Bye.
Jeff from Houston, calling from enemy territory out there in Houston, Texas. Thanks for your voicemail, my friend Mike. He's got a question about this organization. Is it a culture thing? Is it from the top down? I mean, players come over after having a great season like Grichuk and Crone, and then they come over here and they don't do well. Like, what's the deal with that? Is it a culture thing?
Well, before we answer that question, I did see a tweet yesterday that talked about the Dodgers, and the Dodgers had all these players that came over from other organizations, and they ended up performing. And the most recent one was Lance Lynn. Like, who would have thought Lance Lynn would have been the guy that would actually be the ace of your staff? I mean, that's why we got Giolito, right? And so there's something in the sauce in LA with the Dodgers that the Angels just haven't picked up. Now, Jeff Fletcher had a really interesting article the other day about the front office. He said there has been an organizational philosophy, one that comes from the top, in quotation marks, of baseball operations, not from Matt Wise, but from the top. And players insisted one of the things that they were communicating was concentrating on more spin, more velocity, more movement instead of command, and working through game situations. That was specifically to the pitchers. And Johnny, I just wonder if that actually gets in the way. I wonder if that actually causes problems. Like, when you have specific people that you've put in charge of your pitching staff, Matt Wise as an example, when you have people like Benji Gill, when you have Marcus Thames, you bring them in and you want them to actually implement something. And if as the boss, you hire them because they're good at what they do. Now, obviously you give them some parameters and the vision of the organization, but I think what Jeff is high-fiving here, John, is that it seems like they just want robots to come in instead of allowing these guys to do their job. And, this year with the pitching staff, there's been this lack of shift, right? Like the shift isn't there anymore. And there's been an emphasis on more strikeouts. Now, I don't know if that gets Matt Wise specifically off the hook.
I know, that's what I'm thinking too.
But doesn't this speak to like maybe some dysfunction and disorganization in the org?
Yeah, because there's no cohesive conversation happening, Mike. There's no like cohesive or consistent philosophy, or at least it's very short-sighted. If this is, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we want you to emphasize. Here we go. Yeah. So, I mean, does this make it Wise versus the front office here? Like, is that what's happening?
Right. Feels like it.
Detmers was quoted saying that, the reason he did so good the other night was the approach was going deep into the game. The mindset was, I need to get 7 innings. I need to get 8 innings. Like, shouldn't that always be
right? Why wouldn't that be right? Why wouldn't that be the thought?
Well, and here's more from that article. It says each day the pitching plan is the product of the work of 5 to 10 people, including the pitcher, 1 or 2 catchers, Wise, Bill Hessel, and a number of analysts. The results of that plan, some people suggest, is often too inflexible, not allowing for the myriad of ways situations can change during a game. A handful of Angels pitchers are not allowed to shake off the catcher, the pitcher said. This speaks volumes to me. You've got dysfunction. You've got hey, here's the game plan, stick to it. Baseball's a game of nuance. You can't stick to a plan on paper and think that everything's going to work. And here's the thing, Mike, all the talent in the world, as proven by the Mets and the Padres this year, that doesn't matter if you don't have cohesion, if you don't have a strong philosophy from the top down. You could sign all the $1 million players you want. It doesn't help if you don't have a cohesive conversation happening. So I think that Jeff is really onto something.
Right. Jeff's right. In short, the answer is, Jeff, you're right.
Yes, correct. Hey, let's go to our second voicemail of the day.
Hey, guys. This is Ruben from Simi Valley. I just had a quick question. Buddy and I were talking about the Angels before Trout and Ohtani, and life was good. We were making the playoffs every year. We put out a good team consistently. Did the pressure of having the best player in the world make us lose our identity? Did that become like a hurdle that the Angels couldn't get over? The hurdle of trying to win with the best player in the world, trying to get them to the playoffs? Because I can see a world where Ohtani leaves and the Angels immediately become successful again. Maybe that's what this organization needs. Just get that pressure off of us and become a winning ball club again. I don't know. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. You'll have a good day.
Ruben's from Simi Valley. Thanks for your voicemail, my friend. I think he has a great question, Mike. Like, what was this team before Trout and before Ohtani, even before Trout? And so let me address the time that we've had Ohtani and Trout. If we think back, the goal was always, we got to get Trout to the playoffs. We got to put a winning team around Trout. So you go out and you sign Shohei Ohtani, not only because he's a two-way phenom, but because he addresses the pitching problem. Like, he's going to be a starting pitcher that the Angels have long needed. But then, he can't pitch for the second half of 2018. He can't pitch in 2019. He only pitched an inning and 2/3 in 2020. And then he goes off in 21 and 22 and now 23. But then Trout is hurt in 21, 22, and 23. So the timing never lined up. But then you think about the time before even Ohtani and before even Trout. Like, talk about that.
Yeah, the answer to this question is it's layered, right? The time before Trout and Ohtani is the Angels developed really good players. Weaver, Kendrick, Ibar, Morales. Before that, Garrett Anderson, Tim Salmon, Jim Edmonds, Darren Erstad, right? And then they had a mix of veterans that they developed with young players. And these veterans were additives, which I think was strategic, right? Like Torrey Hunter coming in, like, you're not just getting a good player, you're getting a good leader. And then Vlad Guerrero, you're getting somebody who's just multi-talented, and I will always say he's the best free agent signing we've ever signed because he came in and actually performed. He didn't fall apart like Albert Pujols did. And they honestly haven't really developed anybody since 2010. I mean, Trout's been there, but Trout was already a phenom, right? Shohei's been there, but Shohei was already a phenom. There hasn't been somebody that has risen from the rakes that you're like, Ibar, Kendrick, right? Now, there's potential with Neto and some of the guys that are coming up only right now. But between 2010 and 2020, I think they've really failed as an organization, haven't they, John?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the whole thing is an organizational failure where the money, the investment, the time, and the talent goes. You need scouts. You need a philosophy. You need minor league investment. You got to give them a place to live.
Yeah.
First of all,
yeah,
you need a talented scouting director. And Mr. Marketing Genius, John Carpino, the president of operations, he's pushed the team to sign big free agents and not invest money the ways that teams do to be really good. I mean, it's a money-making machine, not a winning machine. And the irony there, Mike, is that when you win games, you make more money. So, I mean, they get all these big flashy free agents to bring people to the ballpark, but they totally neglected what makes teams good. And that's drafting, development, scouting, signing, investing in the minor leagues, giving them data and information, all that stuff. The infrastructure has not been there. And I think Perry Manassian is just now starting to get to that.
And if they win, the fans have proven that they're going to show up. You look at like 2002 when they won, suddenly we're a team that is bringing in 3 million fans every single year. Even in the last 10 to 15 years, we've still shown up, right? Only in the last couple of years, the attendance has kind of dropped, but this year it's actually back up again. And so, gosh, if you just went back to that philosophy, I can't see why you wouldn't. Then you're going to be able to actually make money, plus really develop players, but perhaps they don't want to spend the money to develop the players. That might be the tension that's happening in that front office.
It's short-sighted. It's make me money now and not worry about it later. And now we're finally at the worrying about it later part, because look at what the team might look like next season. I mean, they piled up all the money from 2011 onward, and they said, we'll worry about it later. And now we're in the worrying about it later stage. Hey, the Angels are playing the Rays tonight at 6:38 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels. How many years does it take for a GM to really implement a philosophy and culture? We're going to talk about that, GM, PM, and much more coming right up.
Today's show is brought to you by Sleeper. If you haven't checked out the Sleeper app, you should right now. Today on Sleeper, you can swing for the fences with Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you love and decide if they're going to overperform or underperform in their stat categories. And if you get your picks right, you could win big. Entries can be made in 30 seconds or less, and there are safe and fast withdrawals on all payouts. You can download the Sleeper app today, and when you do, we're here for you. Use our promo code Locked On at sign up, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. You should check out Sleeper today.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, join us on Monday as we recap the weekend series against the Rays. We're looking forward to seeing how that turns out. You know, they're back at it tonight, 6:38 Pacific time, so make sure you catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Mike, we got more voicemails to get to, so let's get to our next one.
Hey guys, this is Ron from Simi Valley. Love the show. Just an honest question. I was curious why you guys are so in favor of Perry Manassian. We know from Joe Madden's book that he definitely intervened with Joe Madden and how the lineup was set. That's part of why Madden was let go. We know that he's definitely intervening with Phil Nevin. And then you look at Neto's been great. And then you have all of these rentals coming in, and it's not working, and the starting pitching is weak, and the relievers can't be trusted. And the biggest thing is the record. Like, they finished 20 games under 500 last year. They're probably going to end up under 500 this year. So if we're analytics and we're going to live and die by the numbers, how do the numbers justify your support of Perry Manassian? Thanks for your time. Love the show.
Ron from Simi Valley, thanks for your question. I think a good challenging question. First of all, the short answer is, he's not Billy Epler and he's not Jerry DePoe. That's where I'll start with this. But Mike, why do we like and defend Perry Manassian so much?
You know, he mentioned 2 things. He mentioned Joe Madden. He mentioned Phil Nevin. And I think that the reason why there is a lot of interference is because those aren't Perry's guys. And I think Perry wants his philosophy to be implemented. The problem is he's just never really been able to pick his guy. So just off the top, that was the first thought that I had. He's made good moves. And he's made some bad moves, and every GM's going to have wins and losses. And Johnny, I think he's really worked well under the circumstances with Artie Moreno selling, not selling, selling, not selling, and John Carpino saying, "Hey, here's the budget you have. You can't go over that." And I think under different circumstances, 2023 looks a bit different if Artie sells. I think there's new management, there's new coaching, as I mentioned, and I think I think that that's really what we're running into is he just doesn't have his guys. He's drafted well. I think we have to affirm that. And he's traded well. Didn't necessarily impact us like we thought it would, but he's made some really great trades from some pitchers that we were like, man, who is that? Right. Like, and so I think he's made some really good decisions there. And Johnny, as we've discussed in the last segment, there's really an organizational philosophy that I think is pushing up against what was when Epler was here and what was when DePoto was here. And I think that there is some cross communication and not clear communication. And that's what Perry is kind of fighting against right now. Do you agree?
Definitely. And regarding the rentals coming in and not working, I mean, all Perry can do is address what was missing from this team. And we all screamed for, we need more relievers. We need a first baseman. We need this, we need that. And so he goes out and does that. And he also built the depth in the offseason, and they're all hurt. Like the Angels have twice as many injuries as any other team. I know people will say, well, every team gets injuries. Not as many as the Angels. Like that's just the numbers. That's just facts. Like a GM can only go out and get the pieces, but the players got to play, and the coaches, they have to coach, right? And then regarding the record, I think, you know, when two of your three anchors are out for 2/3 of the season, Trout and Rendon, and then they're out for 2/3 of a season, and all you have left is Ohtani. Like
two of whom, by the way, Perry's not responsible for.
Right. Also that. But like last year, we pleaded, Mike, on this show for Perry to go get reinforcements when Trout went down and got hurt, and he really didn't. And that, to be honest, is a knock against Perry Minasian. Maybe they thought that they were already out of the race by the time, you know. At the same time, I think he realized it was a shortcoming, and he went and addressed it in the offseason. He stacked up this team with depth that was sorely needed and should have worked, hasn't worked. But again, how do you deal with 20 guys on the injured list at a time? I mean, it's insane to think about.
Right. And just, you know, to finish this conversation, Ron, I really think here's why I'm still in favor of GMPM. He hasn't been there for the 3-year mark yet. And I think it takes 3 years to really turn a culture around. I think it takes 3 years to put your fingerprints and thumbprints on things. And I think that what we're finding so far is that he's actually really impacting this system. And eventually we're going to see the results of that. Johnny, who was the guy that drafted Trout and all of those guys and then was fired? Do you remember that guy's name? I'm blanking on his name. Anyway,
I know who you're talking about.
He was a great scout, and then they let him go. And then
Eddie
Bain. And then eventually Trout and Grichuk and Skaggs and all of the guys he drafted ended up becoming really good Major League Baseball players. They just, I think, pulled the trigger too soon on him. And I think with Perry, the same thing is going to happen with Zach Neto. I think Nolan Shanuel is going to be here. The guy's crushing it in AA right now. And so I think that his philosophy is going to start to implement. I wouldn't be surprised if next year is a much better year than this year. And even in the next couple of years, whether he's here or not, I think that we're going to see the Perry Minasian effect sooner rather than later. And so I would say, like, that's why I'm in favor. Give him just a bit more time to really put his fingerprints on this organization, and we're going to see great results.
We've got more GM talk right now in this next voicemail. Here we go.
What's up, guys? This is Donnie from Wisconsin. Brand new caller, brand new listener. I've been following the Angels since Torrey Hunter went there. He's my favorite player of all time, so I know what's been going on. Real quick, David Stearns. Throw all the money possible at him. Get him to come over, be the GM, shake his team around. We'll be golden. Later.
Johnny from Wisconsin, thanks for your voicemail. Mike, he really wants David Stearns from the Brewers organization to come over here. Let me give you a little background here. Former GM of the Brewers from 2015 to 2022. He was actually a year younger than who's the guy on the Brewers who got in trouble for steroids, took the MVP away from
Ryan Braun.
Yeah, he was actually a year younger than Ryan Braun when he got the job.
That's right.
But listen to this, Mike. Okay, first of all, he drafted Corbin Burnes in 2015. Back in 2021, the midseason ranking for the Brewers organization was 25. This year, 2023, the midseason ranking 3. They went from 25 to 3 for the Brewers farm system. Listen, in 2018, Stearns signed Lorenzo Cain, Ulysses Chassin, he traded for Christian Yelich that year, who got the NL MVP. At the deadline, they were in second place in 2018, so he went out and got Moustakas, Granderson, Gio Gonzalez, Jonathan Scope. And then, because of the Josh Hader move, which I told you was a bad move, Michael,
I didn't fire him.
They removed him from the GM role, and so he is still with the organization. But hey, David Stearns, good move, bad move? What do you think?
I think if the Angels are going to move in a different direction and not have Perry around here, Johnny, someone with experience would be great, right?
Yeah,
like
someone who's been there before.
What we've had with our previous three, including GMPM, is that they've been assistants. They haven't been in charge. And the name Dave Dombrowski comes to mind, right? That guy comes in, and I know he trades away a lot of minor league guys, but look what he's done with the Phillies.
Yeah.
Look at how he's really transformed that team. They're in it again. They went to World Series. They're in it again, right?
Yeah.
And they might mortgage some of the future, but they really put a good team around him. And then the guy who was with the Red Sox is with the Cubs. And again, I'm terrible with names again, but he's now the president of baseball operations, I think, with the Cubs. He has been rumored as somebody that might be good to come over and be the president and maybe actually make moves for us. And I'll think of his name as soon as we're done with the show.
Right.
But somebody's commenting right now. Thank you for that. I just think that somebody like that coming in, if you're going to make a move, you got to go get somebody with experience, somebody who can flex. You got to get somebody like a Bill Stoneman that can come in and go, here's what you do. You make this decision, make that trade, draft that guy. Let's go win a World Series, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, if Artie ends up selling and the whole organization changes in the offseason, go out and get a GM with experience. We'd love that. Mike, we got one more voicemail here. Did you happen to find that name, by the way?
Theo Epstein.
There he is, Theo. You know what? This voicemail comes from like one of my favorite listeners that we have. I think he's your favorite too. Tracy from Henderson, Nevada. Here we go.
Hey guys, Tracy from Henderson. Been a little bit since I called. What is the difference between Phil Nevin and Dave Roberts? The answer is talent. If you switch those two managers, the results with the Angels and the Dodgers would be the same. So frustrating. I'm sitting here watching the game on Monday night. It's only the third inning. Sandoval has walked 5 guys. Trust me, Matt Wise has not instructed him to walk 5 guys. I watched Velasquez throw the ball away in the first inning. He's not being coached to throw the ball away. We look at Freddie Freeman, $20 million. We look at Mookie Betts, $27 million. We look at Anthony Rendon, $38 million. That is really eye-opening, and that is not an on-the-field problem. That's an off-the-field problem, and I understand it's not Perry. Perry inherited Rendon. But if you take the $30 million that Shohei is making this year and the $38 million that Rendon is making, and if you can combine that, you could lock up Shohei for a long time. Really frustrating from a long-time Angel fan. Thanks, guys.
Tracy from Henderson, Nevada. Thanks for your voicemail, my friend. Man, he's going to make me cry over here because you think about Freddie at 20 million, Betts at 27. Rendon's making like 85% of those two salaries combined.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tracy. Mike, he brought up like the fact that like nobody's coaching Sandy to walk 5 guys. Nobody's coaching Velasquez to throw the ball away 3 times into the Rangers dugout. And I get that, but my thing is like, who's putting Velasquez out there?
Sure.
It's Nevin. He puts him on the lineup card. Now, props to Phil for sitting Velasquez the last couple games because of those issues. And then who's in charge of telling Sandoval to go after a hitter and not nibble? Well, hopefully it's Wise, but maybe it's the front office. Again, organizational dysfunction, organizational disorganization. How about that, Mike?
Yeah.
Trademark.
Yeah.
But props to Matt Wise for helping Reed Detmers find his way. So I hear what Tracy's saying, but at the same time, like where's the blame go when stuff like this happens? Is it the talent? Is it the coaching? What do you think?
Well, he's not wrong. There is a very talented team just down to 5, right? And they have a lot of great talent. Here's the problem, John. We've seen a bit of talent from Sandy. We've seen a bit of talent from Detmers. We've seen flashes of good pitching, right? And then stretches where they're not so good. John, who's in charge of harnessing this talented individual to help them to grow into the Major League Baseball that they could potentially be? Who's the person that's supposed to help Sandy and Reed Detmers become the pitchers that everybody expected them to become?
John Carpino. No, that's not it.
Right. Matt Wise, right? Yeah. And so I don't disagree that it is about talent, but where I would push back is I would say, I already said at the beginning of the show, the Dodgers have figured out a way to make Lance freaking Lynn into a freaking stud, right? And so they have figured out what they're good at, and they're coaching them in what they're good at. And honestly, That comes from the top down, not Perry. That comes from Phil. And Phil needs to be on his guys. Phil, not just players, needs to be on his coaches. He needs to be in their faces and saying, what are you doing to help these guys get better? I want to see it. If I'm in charge, I would say, give me the game plan. I want to see it. What do you got for this week, this weekend as we're playing the race? I want to see it. Write it down, send it to me. I want to see it before you actually go and talk to them about it, because obviously something's not working.
Yeah, I mean, and I think obviously, like with the coaching, they set the tone in the room. They're the one, like, especially Phil Nevin, like he's got to set the tone and as the manager and to sit a guy like Velasquez after the 3 errors or whatever it was, like that sets the tone. That sends a message. But again, the organization, apparently from the article from Jeff Fletcher, is all over the place with this stuff. There's no cohesive philosophy. There's no unifying message. Coaches are being told what to do instead of letting them be coaches. What a concept. But Mike, I thought about Tracy's question, and I think the better question might be, if the talent on the field switches places between the Dodgers and the Angels, then what happens? And here's what I think happens. Mookie Betts and Freddie are stars, and stars like that get to be who they are, and they don't get told what to do. So think about Trout, Ohtani, even Moustakas. Like, nobody's telling them what to do. Young pitchers with all the talent in the world, like the Dodgers have, I think they struggle the exact same way our Angel starters are struggling. And then, Velasquez doesn't sniff the lineup because there's a much better option down in the minor leagues that the Dodgers system pulls up from. And, and even though we might not have a talented shortstop that like the Dodgers might have to pull from, like at least Velasquez wouldn't be here if he was on the Dodgers. So again, I think if you were to swap the entire team from the Dodgers to the Angels, I think the organizational problems from the top down don't help the Dodgers talent, right? I think they make it worse, and it really speaks to what's going on with the Angels.
Here's the analogy, and then we'll finish. It's stunning Steve Austin in WCW versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in WWE, right? Like everybody said, he's not good, he's not this, he's not that, and then he literally changed his environment, and guess what? He became Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That's
right?
my favorite analogy you've ever done on this show. Yeah, stunning Steve. He had balding blonde hair and was flamboyant. And he shaves his head and grows a goatee and becomes probably the most successful wrestler of all time.
You get good creative around him and he becomes Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? It does take a bit of his talent, but it also takes the people around him. The Angels right now, it just feels like the people around Reed, the people around Sandy, the people around this team are just not able to come up with a philosophy that matches how they're wired and how they're gifted. And that's got to change. And I think what we saw from Reed Detmers a couple nights ago, we maybe tapped into something because Matt Wise was working with him. So good on Matt Wise. That's what needs to happen with this team. By the way, doesn't need to happen in August. It needs to happen in March and in April.
In the off season.
In the off season. Come on.
What are we doing here? Yeah, exactly.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Rays tonight at 6:38, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. I got to read like Stone Cold Steve Austin. On the SXM app, just search Angels.
Now the Rays, there's an organization that knows what they're doing from the top down, right? You think, I know that we need to end the show, but like you'd think that Perry Minasian coming from the Braves system has a good idea on how to do it when he has been under Alex Anthopoulos' watch that time.
I'm stealing all the guys from the Braves, and I'm paying them all the money in the world. Get over here.
Yeah, come to the West Coast, baby. Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
We're playing the Rays this weekend, and we're hoping for some sort of success. I think this is the opportunity for the Angels to be successful because the Rays are struggling. They don't have some of their big-name players. Come on, Angels. Let's get a victory. We're going to recap all 3 games on Monday on Locked On Angels.
We hope you have a great weekend, and we're looking forward to having you back here on Monday for more Locked On Angels. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
And that's the bottom line.
Because the Super Halo Bros said so. That's right.